Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Blood, Guts, and Thunder. We've got our permanent guest, permanent producer, James Sutherland on the show. Who could have guessed?
Who would have guessed that our guest today would have been me and screwed up the music intro already? But here I am on my own show again, talking all things Canadian soccer.
As you are. So like that was pretty crazy. Like this past week went about as well as it possibly could have, and I'd just like to thank you again for predicting adversity that we never had to face.
Yes, correct. I will always sort of be one of those fans who's like, oh, we're gonna lose anyway, and like be hoping to be proven wrong. There was a few moments. I mean, we'll get into it. I'll try not to ramble on too much to start off the show, but there was a brief period in the El Salvador game where I was just like, is this gonna end 0-0? Is this gonna end?
Yeah.
There's a period where I was like, oh, this may not be a loss, but this is gonna really deflate the window we just had. So, but yeah, we can get to that. So, I predicted adversity, and I think we had it in the El Salvador game for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm happily wrong here, and is what I'm trying to say.
I feel like no matter how that window went, us winning the first two games, if we had lost that El Salvador game, I just feel like we never would hear the end of it. But anyways, James, I think everyone would really appreciate right now if you made like a pretty pessimistic World Cup prediction. So let's say flame out in the group stage. Is that right, James?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's talking about which pot we need to be in now. Everyone's just assured that we're gonna make the World Cup. So it's just like, okay, great. Now we're looking at which pots we want to end up in. People can. It's like when you're at a friend's house and they're trying to explain the rules to a board game to you, and you just physically can't listen to the rules, and you have no idea. Same thing when I see people post all these pot predictions, like, well, this happens and this happens, we want to end up in pot 3, but realistically we're probably in pot 4. And I see the math, I see people putting all this wonderful work into it. I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying to me. But if we want pot 3, let's go for it. But yeah, it's a bit absurd now that everyone's like starting to pick who we're gonna play. And it's like, I'm just happy to be there. Like, as much momentum as we have, we just getting there is a win in my mind. But yeah, I think we can get to make sure if we're gonna go World Cup. Are you asking me for a World Cup prediction right now?
I'm asking you to spring us to winning the World Cup by predicting a 3-loss.
3 and done. My best hope for the World Cup is that the last game in the group stage will matter. That's my hope. I want that last game in the group stage to mean something. That's my prediction.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible that we want anything out of the World Cup now. I remember, when the Ox started, we wanted we were satisfied with 4th place, if that. Some people were saying this could be good prep for 2026, and that's about it. And I don't know, I'm so glad it's progressed beyond that, because even when this even when I was worried about Suriname, and I wouldn't shut up about Suriname.
Yeah, remember those dark days of being worried about Suriname, and then being like, oh god, well, thank god we got through Suriname.
Wells.
Good thing we're through Suriname, because now we really got to focus on Haiti.
Or like Aruba might have a semi-professional 11 this window.
Yeah. We got to beat them by at least 10, or else what's the point?
And it's like in a month or in a couple of months, that is all of that is dissolved. It's just so unprecedented. I guess I want to start with the U.S. game, because I don't know, it's a middle game, but it feels like the most relevant game, maybe the most relevant game of this entire World Cup qualifying cycle. On a personal note, I actually got to go to the Hamilton game. I didn't think I was going to be able to. You have to act surprised, James. You have to act like I didn't.
What
the show started.
Believe me, I am very actually interested in asking you. But go on. I want to ask you a few questions to describe the experience to me.
Well, I think the main thing is that it's unbelievable that there were only 12,000 people.
Sure didn't look like it. I can tell you that much. It looked like there was a lot more than that.
yeah, like people were joking on Twitter that 8,000, 10,000 people had snuck in, and like I don't know, I couldn't tell if it was a joke at first because the stands genuinely looked like full with red, full with Canadian fans. Like all around me. I'm not a very vocal person. Like um I don't know. I've like whether it's at a hockey game or this is my first international game. Like it's hard for me to get really into it, but in this case, it was just impossible not to. Everyone around me was just going crazy. Everyone was standing up, whether I liked it or not. Um, I couldn't really see it.
Sit down, sit down. You're ruining the show.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it was like an incredible experience. It wasn't technically that cold. It was only -5, I think, but I was in the shade, um, and like the other side of the stadium was covered in sunlight, but I was in the shade, and I was like really unbelievably cold for the first half. I wasn't wearing it. I made the stupid decision not to wear a jacket,
Oh boy.
so that's part of it. But I'm still wearing like 3 layers and then a sweater and then my Eustachio jersey over top.
Perfect. Good choice.
Um, so yeah, it was just even if my fingers froze off for the first half, I put on even more layers for the second. I was prepared,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just had an amazing time. And on top of that, getting to do a vlog for CBC Sports that I thought it was going to go up earlier, but it's actually probably going to go up maybe a month from now. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know I didn't know you went, so that's actually this is me genuinely like surprised and happy and glad that you went. So you're gonna have to tell me more. Like it's funny how people were still after the St. Paul's game for the U.S. against Honduras. People say, "Well, we know they just played in Hamilton. And Hamilton's cold." It's like, well, I'm interested to hear from you because it was obviously cold in Hamilton, but it's nothing like they were talking about in St. Paul. Like obviously,
No, I probably would have wound up with hypothermia.
yeah.
Uh, in St. Paul, like so many Hondurans.
Yeah, just a couple of casual hypothermia cases, no big deal.
Yeah, that no. We should probably talk about that later, but that's insane that that game got played when there's literally an indoor stadium like within
Yeah, I
what
mean,
is it, 30 minutes? It's insane that
I
that
mean,
game
you
got
you
played.
paid the some people. I'm on one side of that argument and on the other. Like I do agree that there's a point where it is too cold to play, and but I guess on the other side, like Bolivia where they play their games is at the highest
True.
altitude you can play games. These an advantage. That's dangerous people's health. You got teams in Central America and South America playing to extreme heat and things like that. So like I think because now we're seeing this cycle, Canada and USA using geographic spots to their advantage for one. So I think I'm in the past they may have, but it's most noticeable now that Canada and USA are using the cold environment to their advantage, and they're playing on turf. Um, so people are getting upset about that. But for decades, if not longer, Central American and South American teams have been using the heat, the humidity, they've been using the altitude, they've been using it to their advantage too. So it's just like one advantage versus the other. Like I'm sure there's been players who've been passed out from exhaustion from the heat. It's no different than getting hypothermia from the
For
cold.
sure.
So I am on both sides of it, where I agree that St. Paul's, Minnesota is a bit colder than -5 in Hamilton on a sunny day. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to see some of the fallout and also the comments just after that game. But yeah, I'm sure we can get more into that USA Honduras game a bit more.
Yeah. There was that great recent CONCACAF video where they just detail like all the crazy environments you have to go to and how Canada and the US are sort of finally starting to embrace that. And if nothing else, I guess St. Paul, Minnesota, it's one way to do it. It's one way to embrace that.
Yeah.
Um, I guess going into the US game, shoot, it was hard not to feel like amazing just with the crowd around me, but internally, I wasn't feeling great. There was no Davies, obviously. I had to go on my phone to find out there was no Eustachio.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I was getting shades of like, the Jamaica game near the beginning. Like, the turf isn't great. We don't have our best midfielder. The conditions are difficult in a completely different way. Like I felt like it was going to be hard for us to get a result. Um, I guess before I go off on tangent about how I sort of think we pulled it off, do you have any thoughts on like how we approach this game?
Yeah, it's interesting because this is one of the few times I've been able to watch every game of a window. There's been other windows where I've missed at least parts of games or whole games, but yeah, watching the Hamilton game was really interesting to see, like Canada's tactic in the sense of just absorbing pressure. And again, we'll make fun of Americans more as we go on here, but like there's a lot of fans like, oh,
We will.
even their manager Greg, he was just like, oh, we dominated the game, It's like, no, I think
Oh, I have a very long segment on
well,
that.
hold on. We'll get to. So anyway, so the approach was, obviously we're going to play in a colder environment. I don't know if they really factored that much in their game plan, but they knew the game plan was like we're going to absorb pressure and we're going to counter. Because even though, yes, you know what, statistically and for a lot of the possession, the USA had tons of it, and it's absolutely true. But we just soaked up the pressure, and every counter for the most part was dangerous. We probably at some point probably could have been up by three. That Adekubi goal would be less impactful if we were already up by two at that point. So it's pretty crazy that they kind of played into our hands. Like not to take away from the pressure that they did mount, and the chances that the Americans did create, just couldn't capitalize on. But Canada kind of perfectly did that thing, and there's lots of times in hockey where you see. Oh yeah, this goalie had like a 25 save shutout. It's like, well, really, all the shots were from the perimeter. Nothing was dangerous. He saw everything, and that's kind of how he saw. Other than a couple of set pieces by the states, I kind of saw that Canada's just sort of set up like we're always gonna be in the right spot. We're gonna have multiple people in case we're beat. We're gonna have everyone kind of hunkered down, which is not pretty to watch. But like in World Cup qualifying, I wouldn't care if we scored just like they beat us in the Gold Cup. I wouldn't care if we scored in the opening minute and then sat back for 89 minutes. Like, doesn't matter. Get the result. Yeah, so that's I think that's just I'm not looking inside John Herman's head here, but I think they kind of played perfectly into using not only the smaller pitch at Tim Hortons Field to their advantage in the turf, but also just like playing to their opponent's game styles. Like, yeah, they're gonna press hard, they're gonna press a lot, but we're gonna absorb it, and they can't really handle our counter.
Yeah, like exactly. When you're actually there at the stadium, it's amazing to see the tactics actually play out right in front of your eyes. It's like looking at a giant chessboard. Um, I I saw what we were doing like at the beginning, and I got really excited to see if we could manage this for the whole game. I think the biggest thing was the mid block. Everything was around the mid block. Um, we were the U.S. got into the final third a fair amount. They didn't have that much trouble progressing the ball up the field. But when they actually got there, we made it impossible for them to generate anything. And we just did that all game long, like attack after attack after attack. They could not do anything in the final third. Um, I'm sure it must have been frustrating for Kay and Osorio, who like getting forward, who like progressing the ball. Um, but like there was just this amazing commitment to stifling every attack, to make sure that like a really talented American team, a team that like prides itself around transition play, couldn't do what it was good at. And I think like tactically, um, maybe next to the Azteca game, like this was, I don't know, for an international performance, this was like one of the most clear examples I've seen of like we know what we're doing, we know what we're going to be doing for 90 minutes, and we're going to do it all game, and we're going to piss them off.
Well, yeah, and you
Um,
can go as simple as to say it's the team has bought into the team mentality, right? And I think that was criticisms Canada was getting by a lot of people who hadn't seen them play a lot prior to the first round of World Cup qualifying, when the whole discussion we talked about Suriname, the whole discussion about Suriname and Haiti and all these guys criticizing Canada for saying like, yeah, you have amazing individual talent, and who knew I kind of undersold Jonathan David even back then. We can get it. We'll get again. We've got so many things we can go about. But anyway, everyone was selling Canada short, at least from what I saw, of saying, yeah, they have great individual talent guys, they have up and coming guys, but they're not a team. Whereas all these like Central American and Caribbean teams are teams; they'll play together. That has gone completely out the window. We already knew
yeah,
that was wrong, but for
absolutely.
anyone else watching, because the team has bought into this team first mentality, and like, yeah, sure, like everyone says that, but I think it's been become even more apparent with the Canadian men's team, because you're just not seeing that individual bickering. I mean, not that they're going to show it a lot, but you know what I mean? Like, everyone sort of bought in, and then guys like Kane and Asari who want to play further out are just like, no, this is the game plan, and this is what we're sticking to. So yeah, you could simplify it to that. Like, they've bought into the team game first.
I think recently we've seen like I don't know quite what to call it, but it's like the FIFAization of like team and player analysis, where I don't know, other teams fans will look at our team's FIFA ratings or our team's Wikipedia page, and then they'll decide that like this I've done a thorough analysis, and without having to watch like a single second of Canada playing soccer, I can decide that like Canada is a group of individuals who can't, a group of two or three talented individuals who can't work together. And it was just, I don't know, it was amazing to see it. Like it was, and it's not just Americans who thought that. It was amazing to see like everyone who had, a view that were like, give it to Davies and hope magic happens. Like anyone who thought that was our team. It was amazing to see that image is completely shattered in real time. Another thing I like fell in love with during this game, I never realized just how lethal our counterattack could be. This won't be quite in depth, but it's too bad we can't like blow up a video of this. But
yeah, next season of the show, we'll get into more in depth videos.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was like Laren to, sorry, no, it was like Osorio to Laren to David back to Laren. It was like 4 touches, and then Laren was on a breakaway in the box, which he finished past Turner. Like that, I don't know. That might be, we had some insane goals this window, but that might be my favorite. Just by how quickly we progressed up the field.
It's just like training ground stuff, right? It's just like you go here and then I go. It's like one of the biggest things that you're taught in sports. A lot of different sports in your position is like you do your job, and a lot of what they did is just their instinct. It's like, okay, so in this, they probably wouldn't think about it twice. They just like, I hit the ball back here, I'm gonna go here. It's really just instinct kicking in, and we kind of have to admit, like, maybe our team's pretty good when they can make those plays. Maybe this team is, and you're right, is more than just Davies, is more than just David until those 2 goals he scored this window. But it's seeing those plays done, and we should be like, okay, our team can make those plays where we've seen at different levels of soccer throughout our lives. Like, we can compete, we can play, we can make plays like that.
Yeah, like to see an international team pull that off when chemistry is so hard to develop. It's just really impressive.
Yeah, and even
so impressed with this team.
Yeah, and even like not to stray too much from the Hamilton game, but even of course Jonathan David's goal against Honduras was like individually brilliant. But just as it ties into the Hamilton game plan of playing out from the back and on the counter, the touch that Adekubi makes to Fraser before he kicks up to David. That's the thing. They want to play in control in their end, and you think, just like with the goal he scored in Hamilton, you think, okay, just get out, move the ball down, kill time, whatever. We're under pressure. But for that 2-0 goal against Honduras, Adekubi makes the touch. He literally makes control, touches it to Fraser. Fraser sees David going, and that's just gone. So it's the same kind of, it's different play, but the same mentality of like, no, let's make a play out of this instead of just getting a shot on target or just getting it out. And that just shows the progression of not only the team, but I think Herdman, even though he's getting tons of coverage, I think in like BBC, he's getting tons of overseas coverage now because he's an Englishman, so he's getting lots of paper time, interview time. People are really undervaluing him. I think even I did, I'll admit, for the longest time, not sure how well he was going to do. I didn't think he'd be on the job this long, honestly. But, his tactics and the team's skill set has improved let's just say every month. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, like you have this idea that Herdman is a good coach now. Like, all the negativity from the start of his hire has been shattered. But it would be great to see like a game-by-game analysis or I just love to hear John Herdman talk about his plan going into every single game. It always feels so broad whenever he gets interviewed, like it's only 5 or 8 minutes where he's, going into generalities. But like he clearly has very, very detailed plans. You'll hear. I remember Tato was talking about how Canada completely switched tempos 15 minutes into the Azteca game. You'll hear about little things like that, and you you're sort of just in awe about like how much he has planned going into every single game.
Yeah, I think he's
Um,
gonna always play that kind of stuff, and like good for him to play that stuff kind of close to the chest. So he'll always just be like,
yeah,
maybe we'll do that. Like it's pretty fun to watch. I like that how general he's. I'm often critical of, interviews, but like any sports interviews that are so generic and boring answers. But he's got a bit more character to him, where that when he is generic and boring, and gives kind of like he kind of walks around the answer a bit, but gives you an answer anyway. I like that. I think
no,
he's
he's a
just
great
yeah.
speaker.
I think I like that about him. I like that he doesn't give everything away, and he's smart because he knows someone's gonna poke holes in it and find a way into it. So he's like, might as well keep a good thing going and just give a nice answer, but a very generic one. Now I have to ask you though, did you expect Adekubi to score that goal as soon as he got the ball? I have to. Someone who was there, you have to tell me if you thought that was a goal or he was going to go straight to goal.
He had Ugbo right next to him, and like Ugbo was signaling for the ball, and like checking back afterwards. Sam Adekubi has never scored a goal in his club career. In a league game, he has never scored a goal. Uh, so no, I'd be lying if I said I expected him to run 40, was it 50 yards, and knock that one past Turner. But it's such a testament to like um, how much he's improved as a player, Sam Adekugbe. I remember I was really I saw a little of him when he was with Valerenga. I don't know how to say that, when he was in Norway, and like I'd always been impressed with him. But for me, the big shift was when he moved to Hatayspor, because Hatayspor's whole thing has been taking these diamonds in the rough and propping them up to like a fourth or fifth place finish in the Turkish league, which they did the year after they were promoted. So as soon as he moved to Hatayspor, I immediately thought, okay, well maybe there's something we're missing about this guy. And for me, like it's just this flair he has. What I say flair, but it's in soccer terms, it's just he can run really well and he can dribble really well, and you wouldn't necessarily expect it out of someone who you think is like a defense first kind of fullback.
Well, it's just the energy he brings, right? He really personifies his energy from what we see on the screen and in person, as you saw. I think just the energy he brings as someone that translates to his game. Like he is a very like sort of like quick guy, lots of energy, and so you see that on the pitch and translate really well. But yeah, I did not see. I thought for sure when Ugbo was calling for it, like yeah, put it forward. That's the right play you do, and he's just like, no, I'm going straight to net. And then for Turner to not even react, he just like as soon as the ball left his foot, it's just like, oh,
That was amazing.
I'm not getting to this, and then it just went straight in. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was home, so I had a pretty tame reaction compared to people at Tim Hortons Field. What were they calling? Was it called the ice cap? What were they calling Tim Hortons Field? Was it
The ice kappa, people
the ice
were
kappa?
saying.
Okay, so I heard some people calling it the donut box, which I think I'm a bit more in favor of, because we
Love
can't we
that.
can't we can't make everything off the ice Teca or the Azteca. We gotta start thinking of some more common
Yeah.
ones. So yeah, oh yeah. So but that long way short, I can't imagine what that goal was like in person.
One more individual performance. I like signaling out performances I feel like haven't got enough attention. I think Adekubi has probably gotten more attention than he's ever gotten in his entire life. Probably because he has the best celebrations on the team. But another person I want to pinpoint was Steven Vittoria. I think I've said in the past that I think he's the most underrated player on the national team. Um, and like these performances have maintained that.
Yeah, it's funny how many
You know,
people.
he's
It's
he's
funny.
third.
It's funny how many people undervalue him. Sorry to cut you off, but if it's funny how many people outside of Canadian circles undervalue him, and it's like I think yeah, watching him and on paper too, you see his age, you see, you know, he's still playing in a really good league. He's still playing in a really good team, and so I don't understand. People can believe Atiba Hutchinson's playing well at his age. Why can't Stephen Torrey is younger, and he plays a very important position on the team, and people still don't really think he's a good center back. I don't understand. Yeah, I don't get it. So yeah, I'm fully on board with everything you're saying about him. It's crazy to me that people don't think he's good. That kind of like assume he wouldn't start on the 11 if we go to the World Cup kind of situation, right? They see him more as a rotation like center back, and like they still critique that as our weakest spot. And maybe yeah, sure, like given all of our strengths, and you have to pick somewhere that way isn't the strongest. Sure, let's say center back. So it's Daniil Henry every time he's out there. I love Daniil Henry, but he scares the crap out of me when he's on one card already. I'm like, oh, he's getting a red for sure. Like I feel like he's gonna tackle through someone. But yeah, Vittoria, like I wouldn't be surprised if we see him soon take a set piece and score.
He can, by the way, he can take set pieces and he can be a threat off set pieces. He's pretty unique in that regard. But I've been doing a lot of the Portugal stuff for Canucks Abroad lately, and like I've got to watch him with, I can never pronounce team names. Moray Rents, I think that's how to say it.
Sure, yeah, sure.
And like I don't think he's ever been a fast player, but it's strange. It seems like in the energy he's lost in his legs, he's compensated for it and more with his positioning. It just seemed like every ball, he was able to get up and over whoever it was, McKenny, Pepe at certain times. It just seemed like whenever the ball was in the box, Vittoria was on it and it wasn't going to stay in the box for long. And like he's 35, like you mentioned, and like he played 2 games within what was it, 3 days, like a 3-day window.
Yeah, 3-day window.
Like his stamina is underrated. Like just his general defensive ability is underrated when people were kind of talking about him like as a liability at one point. Like it just feels like every part of his game is underrated, like even now.
I think people have the like FIFA on PS4 mentality of a player over 30 who's like, well, my players have now turned a certain age, better sell them or just loan them out or something because they're no use to me anymore. It's like, you even see that with, again, like because we're Canadian, we're going to reference NHL. You see NHL players as soon as they hit like 31, they go, oh, I don't know how much he's got left in the tank. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, sure, there are lots of exceptions to the rule where like guys just really hit a certain wall, but it's like, come on, that's if that's the main knock on a player is that he's too old. Well, show me somewhere in his game that his age is affecting him, and then I'll start to believe you. Until you get a better excuse, which is what most people. Although some Americans are calling him a property brother, and I thought that was pretty funny. So I thought that was a pretty funny joke. So I'll go with that one. If you call him a property brother and that's your chirp, great. But if you say because he's too old, then get some new material.
As fun as it is to talk about individual players, it's a lot more fun to make fun of American fans. So we're going to dedicate a whole segment to this.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not going to lie. Most of post-game American Twitter was like, despair, nihilism, everything is horrible. But I will take a moment to laugh at people that were making like ridiculous excuses.
Yes.
Even beside me, fellow Canadian fans were joking about the Tim Weah excuses that were already popping up.
Yes,
to where,
yes.
When he played Canada the first time, he's part of the discourse was that he's part of their C team, their B or C team. That without Reyna, in Nashville, with Weah playing, that they drawed us with their B team. But now that Weah is out, he's like their most informed winger. He's integral to their attack.
Yeah.
And how could they possibly have been expected to get a result without him? So that was quite fun.
And then they go off on saying like, Canada's a backwards country because of its vaccination policy and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, because one player who wasn't fully vaccinated couldn't make it. That's like your excuse to just like go off and say, like, come on, we want to start talking about policies. We want to start getting that deep in the chirps against each other's countries. I feel like I got a whole bag full of Americans, so they can leave those excuses at home.
No, that was also quite fun. Americans taking shots at our COVID policy.
Yeah, it's like it's you've come low when you start taking shots at that kind of thing. It's just like it just sounds very very Haiti-esque when they were blaming the was Canada Soccer for why their players couldn't get passports to play a game in the United States. It's like you're just like you're whatever you're trying to pull, you're not pulling, my friend.
Um, but expectedly, like much of the American anger was directed at Greg Berhalter for, doing Greg Berhalter things and saying Greg Berhalter things. In the interview after the match, he described it as a dominant performance despite the result. And like for me, I've always thought that maybe, I've always thought that Berhalter gets a little too much hate from American fans. That, he won them the Gold Cup with a mostly domestic team. He won them Nations League, and generally the United States has, but before this OCT, they've generally cemented themselves as the best team in CONCACAF. But I don't know. When I hear a comment like that after that display, it kind of makes me question like whatever reputation he has as like an analytics whiz or whatever.
It's very much
because
a sore loser mentality. It's just like, it's one of those things. I think, yeah, I can't say I had any real opinions of him as a manager prior. I sort of agreed that he received too much hate from unnecessarily so from American fans because every time they lost, Greg Bethel, what is his last name again? Say it for me. I can't pronounce it. Berhalter. I was a Berhalter. Berhalter out. Everything was Berhalter out. Every time they would lose a game or even draw a game. I mean, pretty sure when they drew us, they're like, oh, we got to get rid of them. They can't even beat Canada, blah, blah. Yeah, and then to have a comment like that after the game to be, we dominated. It's like, great, you dominated and lost. Like, if I go out and play a hockey game and dominate a game and we still lose, like, I'm not happy that we dominated the game. What good are moral victories for World Cup qualifying?
The point is, like, I can sort of understand that comment in certain circumstances. Like, I don't know, like in Football Manager or whatever, there's a term like getting burn lead. Like, there are times when you generally can dominate, or like getting goal lead in hockey. Like, there are times when you generally can outplay another team and not get a result. But like, this wasn't it, Greg.
No, that was a poor comment, and I understand why he made it to save face. Probably he probably thought he was doing the right thing to save some face, but he did not win any favors with anybody on either American or non-American fans. I think he looked pretty foolish in that situation.
But like, I'm like, I don't know what stat he's looking at when he says that, because like 67% possession or whatever it was, that isn't good by itself. Like, that needs to, like, if you have like any understanding of like statistics, that has to lead to chances. You have to generate chances. And like, the U.S. lost the expected goal battle in that game. Like, there is no world where that was a dominant performance. There is no world where like you would go back into that game and say, we should play exactly how we played and we're going to win most of the time.
Yeah. No, I feel like we could go on and on about Berhalter's comments, but yeah, it's fine to see that the collective, like, meltdown. I don't know. I wish I could describe it more. The collective meltdown from American fans. At least, we see it obviously mostly online, the reaction in the media, but just it was like they were knocked out of World Cup contention. Maybe they still got some PTSD from Trinidad and Tobago back in 2017, but I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't even believe it. And there's a bunch of, there was a couple people saying that Canada was only going to get 2 points from the window or something like that. And it's just like, in what world were you believing that was going to happen? I mean, if someone told me Canada was going to get 4 from the window, I'd be like, okay, not great, but that's still a pretty good window for them. But it seemed, they got to be at some point gaslighting us. It has to be a tactical decision for them to just to say stupid things. I mean, I know their education system is below ours, but it can't be that bad. I mean, it has to play a factor into it, but it can't be that. Come on, like, I mean, I went to public school too, and it's not that bad. Come on.
All right, we could laugh at Americans forever, but for now, I think it's time to take a break.
Yes, I agree. So we'll take a break, and we'll be right back. Thank
you. Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Welcome back, everyone. So while we were busy dumping on one of the giants of CONCACAF, James thought it would be a good opportunity to switch it up a little.
Yes,
so
if you couldn't
what,
tell,
what is your hot take?
Yeah,
James?
if you couldn't tell from the new video I made with some fire in the background, some rock and roll music still going on in the background that I accidentally played earlier. Hot takes time. My hot take, and it's probably not going to happen, but we can all hope. Mexico will finish 4th in the standings, and they will go to the Intercontinental Playoff against New Zealand or Solomon Islands. So those are my two choices to come top 2 at least from the OFC qualifying.
I think Solomon Islands. That's a hot take of its own. But
yeah,
let's
takes
focus
right
on the. Let's focus on the Mexican one. Why do you think they might end up in that position?
I just think, not to again, Canada's played some pretty bad games and won. Look at El Salvador, they played okay but not great. Still came away with a 2-0 victory. I just think that Mexico hasn't been convincing in their victories. And sure, again, they beat Jamaica, but Jamaica were 10 men down and rightfully should never have really been up at any point against Mexico. I think if Mexico even draws that game, their manager is done. I think Tata is done. They go on somebody else because that whole country would have a collective meltdown if they even tied that game against Jamaica. I just don't think that they have proven in any of their games really to be the powerhouse that everyone still believes they are. And given that they have some pretty big games in the final window still, I think there's a chance for that to just takes a couple results they don't necessarily need to lose every game, but I think they draw a game or two. Other teams, I think, are going to catch up to them, and there's going to be a pretty scary moment, I think, for them. I don't think their fate is quite as sealed as it is for Canada's, in my opinion, and that's why it's a hot take, my friend.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with most of the content of that.
Most.
I watched them, and most. And, they genuinely looked quite bad this window. They didn't really control any of the games we did against some of these teams, and I was just kind of left wondering what exactly they're going for. Canada very much has a tactical identity. but I think Mexican fans are sort of starting to point out that like it's hard to see what Tata even thinks this Mexican team is, and like there's a reason why there were "Fuera Tata" chants at the Azteca, because like this might be the weakest Mexico has ever looked.
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of came out.
Um,
They came out the gate looking like the Mexico we expected, but I think every window has gone on, they've gotten worse. They've gotten progressively less impressive, or maybe everyone. I think someone might say the competition, even with Costa Rica and Panama, has gotten better as the windows have gone on. I think you just expect more from Mexico. You expect them to be the team we're watching, going okay, like because you guarantee Mexico's going to win every game except for the ones they play us, hopefully, right? So you hope just stay above them, but we're 4 points clear of them and USA, and so even though the job's not done for Canada, the job's not done for Mexico and United States for that matter. But I think USA will exercise some demons. I think they will qualify no problem, just because they have to, or else that whole program will be stricken down. Pulisic, the LeBron James of soccer, will probably not get called up again for an international window. I think Mexico just isn't. They're not quite safe yet, and I think it's maybe it's not that hot maybe to assume that, but I just think that that last game is going to mean something to them qualifying.
yeah, for the better part of that Panama game in particular, like they were legitimately outplayed at the Azteca for the first half and part of the second half. Um, Now, I feel like the big caveat to this is that, like, despite playing, like, you know, pretty badly for these 3 games, they still walked away with 7 points. Um, and before this window, like, I think most of us would have been satisfied with 7 points. Um, so it's hard to say they've lost, like, all of their, scary energy. But, and I think it's quite unlikely they're going to end up in that 4th position. I think that battle is going to be between Panama and Costa Rica.
I didn't say it was a good hot take here, and I didn't say it was a
that
good hot take. I just said it was a hot take.
I just have to cool all the takes down.
Yeah. Let's bring me back down to earth for a bit. Yeah.
No, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think it still is a hot take, and I think it still is a legitimate take to say, like, they are not looking good, and they've lost a lot of what they used to be.
Absolutely.
I guess moving back to qualifiers, technically the U.S. game wasn't the only game that happened during this window. And yeah, I think it's worth maybe to talk a bit about the Honduras and the El Salvador games. I don't want to get like too specific because there is something I want to touch on near the end. But one thing I wanted to focus on was the David Larin pairing that we saw in both of these games. We saw it in the U.S. game too. And it's something we've been concerned about in the past, that, these are our two best strikers by a long shot, and they don't really mesh together. This window, and I think in the 2 Central American games, we saw something a little different. We sort of saw them working together like we had hoped to. Do you have any thoughts on why maybe that worked a little better this time?
I mean, you could just toss up that it's been, several months now of them playing together. I think it's just taken them some time to get used to each other. Not that they couldn't get used to it, but I think they've just gotten more familiar. You definitely saw it on the Larin goal in Hamilton, like that little 1-2. You didn't see it as much in Honduras or El Salvador, but maybe you tossed up to the conditions. Maybe you tossed up to just like the opponent being just a bit more. You kind of play down to the level of your opponent sometimes, and like especially in El Salvador, when I'd mentioned, I'm like, is this game going to end 0-0? This might end up being 1-0 El Salvador, depending on how things go. But yeah, I think they've just grown into a good pair, and although they're still not my favorite pairing, I think I would still take a different combination over those two together. I think they've just found a rhythm of what works for them, and sometimes it gets exposed that they're both not the quickest guys. But then you see Jonathan David do what he did against El Salvador and go, oh, he does have some pace. So, yeah, they're both very similar in the sense that I think I mentioned it last show, that they're both kind of those players you see a lot. They're, again, another cocky reference. They're very much like Ovechkin. What they do drive any person who watches the sport gets driven insane, or questions like, man, like move your legs, like run, go after it. But those Laren and David don't do that. They want to find the open in an ideal world. They want to find the open space. They want to just get that one touch and then go. They don't want to be sprinting up and down, exerting all this energy, because they save it for those moments, like steal a ball and go. You see that. So they're both so similar that I don't think it works all the time. But we saw for these 3 games the moments it did work. Like, okay, this is why you put them together. It's not for the 8 times it doesn't work, but it's for the 1 or 2 times it does work, and you get the goal, you get the result, you get the chance you're looking for. Because then that's what Canada's missed, is game breakers. So if he's going for a moment of just like constant pressure, they're not always going to work well together. You kind of want someone a bit more pace with the other one just to kind of balance it out. But it worked. So we've been saying this all along. You know, back when John Herdman went to a back 3 instead of a back 4 or a back 5, and we were like, oh no, like. What's he doing? Our strength isn't in having a back 3, and then he proved everyone wrong that we've won every game since then. So we just gotta trust the process, man. Just like that's what he's doing. He's found a reason to have David and Laren together, and it's worked. Now we talk about there's a big dip. There's a big dip in quality after those 2, and there's a sub because we got someone I haven't seen a lot of from Upo.
Wait,
yet.
one more thing. I have to say one more
yes,
thing.
Go.
I'd say one more thing. I feel like there is something that's fundamentally changed about those two. Because I feel like in the past, it's always been, Laren is the big guy. He needs to be the target man. And even if he's not that, even if every game he's ever played shows that he's not that, we're still going to try to, force him into that role. I think in this window, we finally saw, some acknowledgement that, Laren might be the bigger guy, but he's not that. And the one who actually has, sneakily good link-up play is Jonathan David. And what we saw in this window was Jonathan David drawing back, being closer to the midfield, and progressing the ball forward himself.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that was the fundamental change in this pairing. And, even if David's not the biggest guy, if he can, keep that link-up play up in this pairing with Laren, then I have a lot more optimism in this pairing going forward. I think you have to give some thought to the idea that, these are our best 2 strikers. They're the ones that are consistently scoring at a high level. And if you can make that, they don't have to work together 11 out of 10. But, if they can work at even 6 or 7 out of 10 efficiency, then I kind of think it has to be our striker pairing going forward.
Yeah, I mean, again, Herdman has proven us time and time again that his tactics are working right now, and so until they don't, we can criticize, and I think rightfully so, we can criticize at times his decision making, but at the end of the day, he gets the result regardless. So it's okay, this is our pairing, this is what he wants, they're going to work together. I think we just need to find a solution for when it's not working, or for when one of them comes off in the pitch. I think we have, momentarily found guys who can fill the role, but I guess Lucas Cavallini's having some fitness issues or some injury issues right now, so he didn't really he came in and got a card in the last 15 minutes against Honduras. Yep. I believe it was. Ugbo came on against, I think
it was actually a COVID issue.
Oh, was it a COVID issue? Okay. So I know Cavallini, when he's in form, is a great number 3 or 4 striker to have in the lineup. He's proven that he can score in major competitions for Canada over the last few years. But I haven't seen anything from the last year. Nothing's really proven to me. Let's take away his hat-trick against Cayman Islands. I mean, he hasn't really had a game-breaking moment for us. And Ugbo I haven't seen enough from, so I just worry about who might be covering if we have to take off David and Laren at some point.
I feel like we need to dedicate some time to the Atiba goal, because everyone sort of is. I feel like everyone just needs to talk about it. Everyone should be talking about it all the time.
I was watching the game live, and so we sort of saw play. It's just the way as someone who cuts broadcast, I was just sort of watching how they're cutting it. Didn't really like it, and they kind of cut down low, show live as it's happening. They show Laren coming in. He makes that cross, and then the way they cut it live on the broadcast, you're like, oh, okay, that went out. And then you see it sort of pop up and bounce back in, and then for a second there, you're not really sure, at least me, this is all from my perspective, so I'm sort of watching it, ball goes up, and the keeper, I'm like, oh, okay, it just came back in. But then the keeper, reaches back for it, and then I see the referee point back, it's a goal, and I think the players are the same way. So like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a goal, and even there, everyone was complaining, and then you see the replay, and like, oh, like that, you couldn't pretend to do that, you couldn't try and do that 100 times. It was just perfect, just off the post, off of Atiba, and just like perfectly over. Keeper has no idea. I mean, maybe we can comment on some match fixing. Maybe the keeper had a certain bet, but he just had no idea where that ball was. And even then, just like when those moments, he just got a hand on it, but couldn't put any power on it. I don't think we've seen such a CONCACAF goal. Honorable mention will always be the Haitian backup keeper who just let it just let it roll into his own net. But,
wait, which one's the CONCACAFiest goal? Which one is it? Is it this one?
I'm gonna give credit to the Haiti one, because I think that Atiba goal is peak CONCACAF. When we joke about peak CONCACAF, that you would never see that in any other region in the world in World Cup qualifying. But I'm gonna still always give it to that Haiti one, because he had full control of it, and just sort of slowly, and that it was only a 1-goal aggregate score for Canada at that point. Still, like, Haiti could have gotten something out of that game, and then that just destroyed it. That just ended any chance of them qualifying for anything. But yeah, I can't think of I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before in any sport.
Yeah, I think the Duverger goal, he kicked it towards his own net twice. I think that makes it unique among goalkeeper own goals, because usually it's a single slip up, but if you watch that, he did it twice. Like, he slipped it towards his own net, and then he missed and then he nudged it to his own net, and then he missed the clearance. I think it's unpopular, but I still give it to Duverger.
Yes, of course. I think Atiba's goal will always get honorable mention, but the fact that again, the Haiti guy just literally put it into the back of his net will always be the most peak CONCACAF goal you can think of.
And there's a sneaky added CONCACAF irony that he was born in Canada, and
secret agent for the Canadians
for once.
Yeah, he's a secret agent for us. He couldn't deny his Canadian heritage, so he decided to help us out, get to the next stage.
And it was sort of like, it was quite a CONCACAF window. It felt like, with the Honduran coach making just the most miserable comments at, like, I don't want to be here. No one really wants to be here. And I guess we're going to St. Paul now. You have the Salvadorian player strike right before the game, where it looked like it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like that was a bit of deja vu, I feel like, because when I remember watching the game in Vancouver against El Salvador, there was a whole talk about how a bunch of regulars weren't going to be there, and a bunch of players were protesting. So I feel like it seems like a very common thing every World Cup cycle for El Salvador, to have a bunch of players threaten to walk out, or just straight up walk out. I think that's just something par for the course for that program.
Yeah, if you look into the details of that story, it's a little more insane than it even looks on the surface. Like, the Salvadorian Federation was mad at the players for announcing that they had to go and buy their own winter gear in Columbus. Like, that was the reason for not wanting to give them the player wages.
Because they admitted the failings of their own federation. Like, come on, like I see so many sports organizations and federations who are just cheap, and nothing comes quite close to some of these teams in the CONCACAF region who just don't want to spend money on things, and it's very evident in their stadiums, in the quality of the pitch, their jerseys. It's unfortunate, because not everyone can afford to have the best, but just like, I can't believe how it always comes down to money with these teams. It's crazy to watch from a distance.
Someone mentioned that, like, the Salvadorians wouldn't be doing this if they had a real chance of getting into the World Cup. And while, like, I sort of agree with that, I don't know. I respect what they did. Like, I mean, if you're probably not going to the World Cup, then that's leverage on your side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, like, if you're not getting paid, then I don't know. I didn't really see what the alternative was. I thought the message was pretty respectful. I thought it was well written. Like, I respect what they did.
Yeah, I'm going to give a special shout out because I was just commenting on how I was critiquing the El Salvador game, cutting the broadcast of the cuts in the cameras on the goals. I have to give a special whoever cut to that shot of the manager of Honduras, tears in his eyes after the 2-0 goal.
Aw.
Just the pure heartbreak on his face. But as someone who appreciates that and works in that was perfect. That after the goal to show that the Honduran manager he knew it was over. Officially eliminated. His job is probably done. And then they got to go to St. Paul afterwards and freeze their asses off. Like, I just thought that was perfect. That was like perfect, like, emotions. You have the high of Jonathan David scoring, and then the manager just literal tears swelling in his eye. I thought it was perfect. I could go on with that forever. Sorry, I was cut you off.
No, I actually think there is something to that because, like, those shots are always risky, right? Like, you might, when you focus on a player or a coach after a goal, well, I guess one, you spot the camera guy spotted that reaction, but two, you're betting that reaction is going to be good on camera, that it's going to last a certain amount of time. It's really cool when you really create that effect when you do get that shot.
Absolutely.
And yeah, maybe we should give like little shout outs to the camera guys.
Yeah, exactly. And then hopefully they can hook me up and so I can direct a few on soccer broadcasts. But that's for another day.
While I did want to talk about transfer rumors, but it doesn't look like we're quite going to have enough time. So I actually did want to ask you something.
Yes.
Heading into, I don't want to say it, but heading to Qatar, I said it. How do you think like the broadcast should work? Do you think it should be? Do you think it should keep being One Soccer, like outsourcing their broadcast to Sportsnet, or do you think like maybe the CBC should be getting a hold of this?
That we might not have enough time for that discussion either, but I think, when no one wanted to broadcast Canada soccer games, One Soccer was there. And they could go and there's this whole rumor of like collusion and all this backdoor stuff with Media Pro, blah blah blah. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think that's true. But I think just like with John Herdman's tactics, I think go with what's working right now. I think it's a good thing. Like, they're getting the best of both worlds. We're getting One Soccer coverage for those who pay for it and want it, and the content's still there. And then people who were whining and moaning that these games weren't on a wider platform like Sportsnet are getting it. So I think currently what they're doing for all these qualifying games, whatever friendlies they have in the future, and therefore I think it's CONCACAF Nations League, I'm sure they'll probably do the same thing because Sportsnet will want to ride the momentum off of qualifying. They're going to broadcast those games in June 2022 for the CONCACAF Nations League. Just keep doing that, and then of course, but everything goes as soon as the world, if and when we get to the World Cup, I'm still not, until it's official, I'm still not going to jump for joy quite yet, but that'll go, that's in charge of, FIFA owns all that. So I think for now, just there's no reason for CBC to have to step up or anything. I think what they're doing right now for regional, it'll be interesting to see when it comes down to World Cup who will get final say, but I think right now the best is to do One Soccer through the Sportsnet.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I've criticized One Soccer in the past, but like, ultimately, they took a bet on Canadian soccer when no one else was really doing it. And I suppose it makes sense that they should be the ones seeing it out. It's unfortunate that we have to end here.
Yeah, this hour goes by quick.
I did want to talk about Eustáquio de Porto for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But doesn't look like we're going to be able to today.
Well, luckily we have a window in just over a month's time, so I'm sure given that time, Eustáquio will play a few games with Porto, and then we'll be able to talk about that and Canadian soccer at the same time.
Also, Stefan, please respond to me. We have to interview you, Stefan.
Yes, please, Stefan. We're at least the number 31 Canada soccer show in Canada, but the number one show on
easily
Canadian soccer when it comes to 12-ounce sports. So please, Stefan, just when you watch this episode, feel free to DM us.
And plus, I'm the only one who will pronounce your name right, Stefan. It's only me. All right. Producer James Sutherland, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for taking my joke from me, Keiran, and I'll see you soon.
Oh no! Oh, you're right. I said show. I can't
that's
actually say the word show.
That's okay. You know what? I'll let slide, but just this one time, all right? I'll let slide one time, and then we'll move on, all right? All right. See you soon, buddy.
Right.
Thanks a lot. We'll be back in March.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.